The September sun beat down mercilessly on the pristine streets of Beverly Hills, where Ahmed Al-Rahman's mansion stood as a testament to his business acumen. At 45, he had everything money could buy, yet the sprawling estate felt emptier with each passing day. His 10-year-old son, Karim, was the only source of joy in his life, though lately even their relationship had grown distant as Ahmed devoted more time to his expanding business empire. That Tuesday afternoon, Ahmed sat in his home office, surrounded by screens displaying stock prices and quarterly reports. The familiar symphony of notifications and phone calls filled the air, a melody he had grown accustomed to over the years. His company spread across 3 continents, dealing in everything from real estate to technology, making him one of the most influential businessmen in the Middle Eastern community. "Mr. Al-Rahman," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your brother Tariq is here for the board meeting." Ahmed sighed, adjusting his designer suit as he stood. Tariq, 5 years his junior, had always been the more charismatic of the two, handling public relations while Ahmed managed the operational aspects of their business. Their partnership had proven successful, though lately something felt off about their interactions. The meeting proceeded as usual, with discussions about expansion plans and profit margins. Ahmed couldn't shake the feeling that Tariq was avoiding his gaze when certain financial reports were presented. He made a mental note to look into it later, but his attention was suddenly diverted by commotion outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Daddy, look at my new skateboard," Karim's voice carried through the garden. Ahmed's heart skipped a beat as he watched his son, still in his private school uniform, showing off his latest acquisition to the security personnel. "Excuse me," Ahmed said, rising from his chair. The board members nodded understanding as he hurried outside. The meeting could wait. Lately, he'd been trying to be more present in Karim's life, though old habits died hard. As he stepped onto the mansion's front steps, time seemed to slow down. Karim, caught up in his excitement, had rolled his skateboard toward the street. A delivery truck was approaching, its driver distracted by his GPS. Ahmed's throat tightened as he tried to call out, but the distance was too great. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a small figure darted forward. A girl, no older than Karim, moved with surprising speed and precision. Her clothes were worn, her dark hair tied in a messy ponytail, but her movements were decisive. She grabbed Karim's arm, pulling him back just as the truck passed by, its horn blaring in protest. Ahmed ran down the steps, his heart pounding. By the time he reached them, Karim was sitting on the grass, looking shocked but unharmed. The girl stood nearby, her brown eyes wise beyond her years, watching the scene unfold with an odd mixture of recognition and uncertainty. "Are you all right?" Ahmed knelt beside his son, checking him for injuries. Karim nodded, still too startled to speak. "He's okay," the girl said softly. The truck was far enough away, but he wasn't looking. Ahmed turned to thank her, reaching for his wallet. "You saved my son. Please let me reward you." The girl stepped back, shaking her head. Her next words would change Ahmed's life forever. "I don't want your money, Mr. Al-Rahman, but I do want something else." She took a deep breath, squaring her small shoulders. "My name is Sarah Martinez. My mother used to work here in this house. And before she had to leave, she always said you were a good man. I want you to be my father." The words hung in the air like suspended dust particles, catching the late afternoon light. Ahmed stared at the girl, really looking at her for the first time. There was something familiar about her features, something that tugged at his memory. "Your mother," he said slowly. "What was her name?" "Isabella Martinez," Sarah replied, her voice barely a whisper. "She was your housekeeper 5 years ago." The name hit Ahmed like a physical force. Isabella Martinez, the most honest, hard-working person who had ever worked in his household. She had disappeared suddenly, leaving only a resignation letter. He had always wondered about the circumstances of her departure, but business had consumed him, and the mystery had remained unsolved. Behind them, the board meeting continued through the windows, Tariq's voice carrying faintly across the manicured lawn, but Ahmed barely heard it. His world had shifted on its axis, and as he looked at Sarah's hopeful, vulnerable expression, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The following morning, Ahmed sat in his study, attempting to process the events of the previous day. Sarah had been temporarily placed in one of the guest rooms, after much discussion with his household staff and a preliminary call to his lawyers. The girl's request had sparked something in him, a mixture of curiosity, concern, and an inexplicable sense of responsibility. Karim had taken to Sarah immediately, perhaps because she had saved him, or perhaps because he had always wanted a sibling. Ahmed watched through the window as the two children shared breakfast on the patio, Sarah's worn clothes contrasting sharply with the elegant garden furniture. "Mr. Al-Rahman," his secretary entered with a stack of files. "I found the employment records you requested." Ahmed opened Isabella Martinez's file with trembling hands. Her employment history was impeccable. 3 years of service without a single complaint. Her resignation letter was brief and formal, citing personal reasons for her departure. But something about it had always felt wrong, and now, looking at it with fresh eyes, he noticed details he had missed before. The signature seemed rushed, almost forced, and the date, it coincided with a major company merger that had consumed all his attention at the time. He remembered now that he had barely registered her departure, trusting his HR department, overseen by Tariq, to handle the details. "Sir," the secretary hesitated, "there's something else. While searching the old storage room for these records, I found this." She placed a small leather-bound journal on his desk. It was behind one of the filing cabinets. The name inside, "It's Isabella Martinez." Ahmed opened the journal carefully. The pages were filled with neat, precise handwriting. As he read, his coffee grew cold, forgotten on his desk. Isabella's words painted a picture he had never seen, of a household filled with warmth despite its grandeur, of the employer she respected, and of growing concerns about certain financial discrepancies she had noticed while cleaning the offices after hours. The final entries were particularly disturbing. Isabella wrote about overhearing conversations between Tariq and unknown parties, about documents she had seen while cleaning that didn't match the official records, and then, most shockingly, about her pregnancy and her fears for her unborn child's future. "I know Mr. Al-Rahman is a good man," one entry read, "but his brother, there's something wrong. The numbers don't add up, and the conversations I've overheard, I can't stay here, not in my condition, not with what I know, but I believe that someday, somehow, the truth will come out, and I trust that when it does, Ahmed Al-Rahman will do the right thing." A knock on the door interrupted his reading. Sarah stood there looking small but determined in the doorway. "Mr. Al-Rahman, can I show you something?" She approached his desk and pulled out a crumpled envelope from her pocket. "Mom gave this to me before she had to go away. She said I should only open it if I ever found you." Ahmed accepted the envelope with unsteady hands. Inside was a letter, along with several photos and what appeared to be copies of financial documents. The letter was dated just 3 months ago, and as he read it, his heart grew heavy with the weight of unspoken truths and missed opportunities. "My dearest Sarah," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then you found your way to Ahmed Al-Rahman, just as I always hoped you would. There are things he needs to know, things I should have told him years ago. The documents with this letter prove what I discovered back then, about the missing money, about the shell companies, about everything. I couldn't come forward then, but you can now. Show him these papers. Help him understand. And remember what I always told you about him. Beneath the business suits and serious expressions, there's a kind man who just needs to remember how to open his heart." Ahmed looked up from the letter to find Sarah watching him intently. In her young face, he could see echoes of Isabella, the same determination, the same quiet strength. Through the window, he could hear Karim laughing at something in the garden, and for the first time in years, the sound of his son's joy didn't feel like an interruption to his work. "Sarah," he said softly, "would you like to tell me about your mother? About everything?" The girl nodded, pulling up a chair. As she began to speak, Ahmed realized that his carefully ordered world was about to change dramatically. But looking at Sarah's brave face and thinking of Isabella's trust in him, he knew that perhaps this change was exactly what he had been needing all along. As autumn leaves began to fall across Beverly Hills, Ahmed found himself spending more time at home than he had in years. Sarah's presence had brought an unexpected warmth to the mansion, filling its vast spaces with the sound of children's laughter as she and Karim formed an inseparable bond. But beneath this newfound domestic tranquility, troubling questions continued to surface. One evening, while reviewing the documents Isabella had left behind, Ahmed noticed a pattern in the financial discrepancies. Several overseas accounts showed regular transfers to shell companies he had never authorized. The transactions were cleverly disguised as routine business expenses, but the amounts didn't match any legitimate operations. Mr. Al-Rahman, Sarah's voice pulled him from his thoughts. She stood in the doorway of his study, holding what appeared to be an old shoebox. "I found this in Mom's things. I think you should see it." The box contained dozens of photographs carefully organized and dated. Most showed Isabella during her time working at the mansion, but what caught Ahmed's attention were the images taken in his private office after hours. In several photos, Tariq could be seen meeting with unfamiliar men, handling documents that shouldn't have existed. "Your mother was very observant," Ahmed said softly, studying the photographs. "Did she tell you about these?" Sarah shook her head. "She just said they were important, that someday they would help make things right." She hesitated, then added, "She used to say that you were too busy looking at the big picture to see what was happening right under your nose." The words stung with truth. Ahmed had been so focused on expanding his empire that he had failed to notice the corruption growing within it. He thought back to all the times Isabella had tried to catch his attention, to share her concerns. But he had been too preoccupied with meetings and mergers to really listen. A knock at the door interrupted his reflection. Mrs. Thompson, the new housekeeper, entered with an anxious expression. "Sir, I was cleaning Mr. Tariq's office as requested, and I found something unusual." She handed him a USB drive. "It was hidden behind the baseboard, sir. I only noticed it because I was moving furniture for the deep cleaning." Ahmed plugged the drive into his laptop, and his screen filled with spreadsheets and emails that confirmed his worst fears. The fraud was more extensive than he had imagined, involving not just embezzlement, but also systematic manipulation of company records. "Sarah," he said, turning to the girl who had been quietly watching him, "your mother was very brave to document all of this, and very wise to protect you by leaving when she did." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "She always said you would understand someday, that you would make everything right." She pulled something else from the shoebox, a small diary with a purple cover. This was her personal journal. She wrote in it every day before she had to leave us. "Maybe it will help." Ahmed accepted the diary, noting how Sarah still couldn't directly reference her mother's passing. The pain was too fresh, too raw. Opening the journal, he began to read Isabella's private thoughts. "Today, I overheard another meeting in Mr. Tariq's office. The numbers they discussed, millions of dollars being redirected through fake contracts. I want to tell Ahmed, but Tariq watches me constantly now. I've seen how he handles people who ask too many questions. With my baby coming, I can't take that risk, but I'm gathering evidence. Someday the truth will come out." Another entry caught his eye. "Ahmed spent time in the garden with Karim today. For a moment, I saw the man behind the businessman. Kind, caring, someone who values family above all. That's why I know he'll do the right thing when he learns the truth. I just pray I'm doing the right thing by keeping quiet. My daughter deserves a safe future, even if it means leaving everything behind." Looking up from the diary, Ahmed noticed Sarah had fallen asleep in the armchair beside his desk. She looked peaceful, vulnerable, so much like her mother, yet carrying a strength all her own. Carefully, he draped his jacket over her sleeping form. As he watched her sleep, Ahmed made a silent promise, not just to Sarah and the memory of her mother, but to himself. He would uncover every detail of his brother's betrayal, not out of vengeance, but because it was the right thing to do. Isabella had trusted him to be the man she believed him to be, and he wouldn't let her down again. The evidence was mounting, but he needed to be careful. Tariq had proven himself more dangerous than Ahmed had ever imagined, and now he had more than just his company to protect. Looking at Sarah's peaceful face, he realized that somehow this brave little girl and her mother's legacy had given him something he'd been missing for years, a purpose beyond profit margins and business expansions. Tomorrow he would begin making discreet inquiries, starting with the offshore accounts mentioned in Isabella's documents. But tonight, watching over this unexpected addition to his family, Ahmed allowed himself to feel the full weight of gratitude for the trust Isabella had placed in him, even when he hadn't deserved it. The investigation into Tariq's activities had to proceed carefully, but Ahmed found his attention increasingly divided between uncovering his brother's schemes and the growing bond with Sarah. As October painted the Beverly Hills landscape in rich autumn colors, he discovered that the most precious moments were the simple ones: helping Sarah with her homework, watching her teach Kareem to make paper airplanes, listening to her stories about Isabella. One Saturday morning, Ahmed cancelled all his meetings to attend Sarah's first school play. She had been enrolled in the same private academy as Kareem, and despite initial nervousness, had blossomed in the supportive environment. As he sat in the audience watching her perform, he felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. Pride, pure and simple. "Dad," Kareem whispered during the performance, "can Sarah stay with us forever? She's like the sister I always wanted." The question caught Ahmed off guard. He had been so focused on investigating the fraud and protecting his company that he hadn't fully considered the long-term implications of Sarah's presence in their lives. Looking at her on stage, confident and bright, he couldn't imagine their home without her. After the play, Sarah ran to them clutching a bouquet of roses from her teachers. "Did you like it?" she asked breathlessly. "Mom used to say that performing was like letting your heart shine for everyone to see." "Your mother was very wise," Ahmed replied, pulling both children into a hug. "And your heart shone very brightly today." Later that evening, as the children played in the garden, Ahmed's private investigator arrived with new information. "The offshore accounts we traced," she reported. "They're linked to a larger network. Someone's been systematically diverting funds for years, using a sophisticated network of shell companies." Ahmed reviewed the documents, his jaw tightening. The evidence was damning, but something else caught his attention. A familiar name among the list of affected employees. "Can you find everything you can about Isabella Martinez's last few months at the company?" he asked. "Specifically, any unusual financial activity around the time of her departure?" While waiting for the information, Ahmed found himself in Sarah's room, helping her organize her growing collection of books, another passion she had inherited from her mother. As they worked, Sarah suddenly grew quiet. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" The term of endearment slipped out naturally, surprising them both. Sarah fidgeted with a worn copy of The Secret Garden, a book Isabella had given her. "Mom used to say that families are like gardens. They need love and care to grow." She looked up at him with those wise eyes that seemed to see right through him. Are we becoming a family?" Ahmed sat down beside her on the purple butterfly rug that had recently been added to the room. "I think," he said carefully, "we already are. Different from most families perhaps, but special in our own way." Sarah leaned against him, a gesture of trust that meant more than any business deal he'd ever closed. "Mom would be happy," she whispered. "She always said you had a good heart, even if you sometimes forgot to use it." The words sparked a memory, something in Isabella's diary about his heart being locked away in boardrooms and balance sheets. How right she had been, and how much he had missed by focusing solely on business success. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Mrs. Thompson entered with an urgent expression. "Sir, there's something you need to see. We found more of Ms. Martinez's belongings in the old storage room." She handed him a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. Inside was a letter addressed to him, dated just days before Isabella's departure. The contents made his blood run cold. "Dear Mr. Al-Rahman, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I've discovered something that puts me and my unborn child at risk. Your brother's activities go beyond simple fraud. He's involved with people who won't hesitate to silence anyone who threatens their operation. I'm leaving to protect my baby, but I'm not running away. I'm leaving behind evidence scattered where only the right people will find it at the right time. Trust your heart, Ahmed. It will lead you to the truth." Looking at Sarah peacefully arranging her books, Ahmed felt the full weight of Isabella's trust in him. She had protected her daughter the only way she could, believing that someday he would open his eyes and his heart to the truth. Standing in that room filled with a child's dreams and a mother's love, Ahmed made a decision. He would not only expose the fraud, but would also transform his company into something that would have made Isabella proud. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, he was certain he was heading in the right direction. The sound of Kareem's laughter drifted up from the garden, and Sarah smiled. "Can we go play with him?" she asked. "He's teaching me to play chess." Of course, Ahmed replied, taking her small hand in his. As they walked downstairs together, he realized that while he was helping Sarah find a new family, she and Isabella had given him something even more precious. They had helped him rediscover his own humanity. November brought early darkness to Beverly Hills, and with it came revelations that would shake the Al Rahman empire to its core. Ahmed sat in his home office, surrounded by mounting evidence of his brother's betrayal. The private investigator's latest report revealed a complex web of financial manipulation that stretched back nearly 6 years, coinciding with Isabella's employment at the mansion. Mr. Al Rahman, his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your brother is requesting an urgent meeting. He says it's about the external audit you ordered." Ahmed's jaw tightened. He hadn't told Tariq about the audit, which meant someone in the accounting department had leaked the information. "Schedule it for tomorrow morning," he replied, his voice steady, despite his racing thoughts. A soft knock at his door provided a welcome interruption. Sarah stood there holding a dusty box labeled Storage Room B7. "Mrs. Thompson asked me to bring this to you," she said. She said it was from Mom's old cleaning cart. The box contained cleaning supplies, rags, and at the bottom, hidden beneath a false panel, a small voice recorder. Ahmed's hands trembled as he pressed play. Isabella's voice filled the room, whispering numbers and dates, details of conversations she had overheard while cleaning the offices after hours. "Sarah," Ahmed asked gently, "did your mother ever mention anything about recording conversations?" The girl's eyes widened with recognition. "She used to say that sometimes the best way to clean is to let the dirt show itself." She paused, then added, "I didn't understand what she meant then." Ahmed smiled at Isabella's cleverness. Even as a housekeeper, she had shown more business acumen than many of his executives. The recordings provided crucial timestamps and voices that matched the suspicious transactions perfectly. Later that evening, as Ahmed tucked both children into bed, a new routine he had come to cherish, Karim asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, why does Uncle Tariq look so worried lately? And why doesn't he come to dinner anymore?" Sarah, perceptive as always, squeezed Karim's hand. "Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out," she said, sounding so much like Isabella that Ahmed's heart ached. After the children were asleep, Ahmed returned to his study to prepare for tomorrow's confrontation. As he reviewed the evidence one final time, he found another entry in Isabella's journal that he had previously overlooked. "Today I saw Ahmed playing chess with Karim in the garden. He was teaching his son about strategy, about thinking several moves ahead. If only he would apply that same careful consideration to the people around him. The pieces are all there on the board. He just needs to see the whole game, not just the moves he expects others to make." A sudden realization struck him. Isabella hadn't just been gathering evidence. She had been laying out a chess game of her own, placing pieces carefully over years, trusting that eventually he would see the complete picture. The next morning, Ahmed arrived at his office earlier than usual. He had arranged for both children to be taken to school by his most trusted security guard, with strict instructions about their safety. The weight of Isabella's trust, Sarah's future, and his own redemption rested heavily on what would happen next. Tariq arrived precisely at 9, his usually immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. "Brother," he said, forcing a smile, "I think there's been a misunderstanding about this audit." "No misunderstanding, Tariq," Ahmed replied calmly, laying out the evidence one piece at a time. The photographs, the financial records, the voice recordings. Isabella Martinez saw everything. She documented it all. Tariq's face paled. The housekeeper. She was nothing but a nosy servant who didn't know her place. She was more than that, Ahmed said, his voice hard. She was a mother, protecting her child's future. A woman of integrity who believed in doing what was right. She saw what I was too blind to see, that my own brother was systematically destroying everything our father built. As the confrontation unfolded, Ahmed thought of Sarah and Karim, probably sitting in their classrooms, unaware of how their world was about to change. He thought of Isabella, who had sacrificed her job and risked everything to protect both her daughter and his company's legacy. "You have two choices," Ahmed told his brother. "Resign quietly, return every penny you've stolen and never contact us again, or face a full investigation and legal consequences." Tariq's carefully constructed facade cracked. "You wouldn't dare," It would damage the company's reputation. Think of the shareholders. I'm thinking of something more important than shareholders, Ahmed replied. I'm thinking of family, real family, built on trust and integrity. Isabella taught me that some things are worth more than profit margins. As Tariq slumped in defeat, choosing the path of quiet resignation, Ahmed felt no triumph, only a deep sadness for what could have been, and profound gratitude for the housekeeper who had seen the truth when he couldn't. The week following Tariq's resignation passed in a blur of press releases, board meetings, and careful restructuring of the company's management. Ahmed had prepared a statement that addressed the situation without damaging the company's reputation, citing personal reasons for his brother's departure, while quietly implementing new financial oversight measures. But amid the corporate chaos, Ahmed found himself increasingly drawn to the peaceful moments at home. One evening, as he helped Sarah with her math homework while Karim practiced piano in the background, he realized that his priorities had shifted fundamentally. "You're different now," Sarah observed, looking up from her textbook. "Mom wrote about how you used to be, always rushing, always thinking about work. You're not like that anymore." Ahmed smiled, touched by her observation. "Your mother was very wise. She knew I needed to learn some important lessons." He paused, then added, "I'm sorry I didn't learn them while she was here." Sarah's eyes grew distant. She wasn't sad about it. In her last letter to me, she said, "Sometimes people need time to find their way home." She said you would find yours. The next morning, Ahmed called a special meeting of his board of directors. The agenda was unlike anything they had seen before, a proposal to establish the Isabella Martinez Foundation, dedicated to providing educational opportunities and support for underprivileged children. This foundation, Ahmed explained to the board, will be more than just corporate social responsibility. It will be a testament to the power of integrity, to the importance of seeing value in every person, regardless of their position. He looked at the photographs of Isabella he had placed on the conference room wall. Sometimes our greatest teachers come from unexpected places. Later that afternoon, Ahmed took both children to the local ice cream parlor, a simple pleasure he would have considered a waste of time just months ago. As they sat at the outdoor table, Karim accidentally spilled his sundae. Instead of calling for help, Sarah immediately started cleaning up with napkins, showing the same quiet efficiency her mother had possessed. "You know," Ahmed said, helping her, "your mother once told me that the true measure of a person isn't in how they handle success, but in how they handle life's messes." Sarah grinned. She used to say that spills are just opportunities to make things cleaner than before. That evening, Ahmed sat in his study, drafting the final documents for Sarah's adoption. The legal process had been expedited thanks to his influence, but he had insisted on following every procedure correctly. Another lesson learned from Isabella about doing things the right way, not just the easy way. As he signed the papers, he found himself thinking about the transformation of his home. Rooms that had once echoed with emptiness now rang with children's laughter. The garden, previously maintained for appearance's sake, now showed signs of actual use: soccer balls, skipping ropes, and the occasional forgotten homework assignment. A knock at the door revealed both children in their pajamas. "Can we have a family meeting?" Karim asked, trying to sound grown-up. "Of course," Ahmed replied, setting aside the adoption papers. "What's on the agenda?" Sarah stepped forward, holding a familiar purple diary. "I found Mom's last entry," she said softly. "I think she wrote it for all of us." Together they read Isabella's final words. "To whoever finds this, remember that families aren't built on blood or business, but on love and trust. Sarah, my brave girl, I know you'll find your way to where you belong." Ahmed, when you read this, I hope you've learned to see with your heart as well as your eyes. And to all of you who might become a family together, remember that the greatest wealth isn't counted in dollars, but in moments of shared joy. Ahmed pulled both children close, his heart full. Tomorrow, he would continue transforming his company into something that honored Isabella's legacy. The Isabella Martinez Foundation would ensure that other children would have the opportunities Sarah now had. But tonight, in this moment, he was simply a father, blessed with a family that had come together in the most unexpected way. "So," Karim said, breaking the emotional silence, "does this mean Sarah is officially my sister now?" "Almost," Ahmed replied, glancing at the adoption papers on his desk. "But she's been family for a long time already. Your mother knew that," he added, looking at Sarah. "She knew exactly where you belonged." The winter sun cast long shadows across the newly renovated wing of the Al Rahman corporate headquarters. What had once been a sterile executive floor was now being transformed into the home of the Isabella Martinez Foundation. Ahmed stood at the window, watching as workers installed the foundation's logo, a purple butterfly, Sarah's choice, representing transformation and hope. Mr. Al Rahman, his new chief of corporate social responsibility, called from the doorway. "The first group of scholarship recipients is here. 20 children, all from backgrounds similar to Sarah's, filled the conference room that had once hosted million-dollar deals. Now it would serve a different purpose." Ahmed looked at their faces, seeing in each one the potential that Isabella had recognized in every person she met. "Welcome," he began, his voice warm. "Today marks the beginning of something special. Each of you has been chosen not just for your academic potential, but for your strength of character. This foundation, named after a remarkable woman, believes in the power of opportunity and second chances." As he spoke, he noticed Sarah and Karim peeking through the door. He had brought them to witness this moment, wanting them to understand the legacy they were all part of now. Sarah's eyes shone with pride as she heard her mother's name spoken with such respect. Later that afternoon, as the children toured the facility with their new mentors, Ahmed found himself in what would become the foundation's library. The walls were lined with books, many of them donated from Isabella's personal collection, which Sarah had carefully preserved. "Dad," Sarah said, joining him in the library, "can I show them my favorite reading spot?" She had taken to calling him Dad naturally, the word falling from her lips as if it had always belonged there. "Of course, sweetheart." He watched as she led the group to a cozy corner filled with cushions. "Your mother would have loved this," he added softly. That evening, during their now traditional family dinner, Karim made an announcement. "I want to volunteer at the foundation," he declared. "I can help the kids with math. Sarah says I'm good at explaining things." Ahmed looked at his son with pride. The boy, who had once been interested only in expensive toys, was developing a social conscience, influenced by his new sister's perspective on life. "That's wonderful, Karim," Ahmed replied. "But remember what we learned from Sarah's mum. Helping others isn't about feeling superior. It's about recognizing that we're all connected." Sarah nodded sagely. "Mum used to say that privilege isn't just about having things, it's about having the power to make things better for others." As they finished dinner, Ahmed's phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. The news was promising. The Foundation's first initiative, a program to provide educational support and mentoring for children of service workers, had received overwhelming support from other corporations in the region. Later, in his study, Ahmed found himself reading through Isabella's journal again. One entry caught his eye. "Today I watched Ahmed give a presentation to his board. He spoke about growth and profits, but never once mentioned growth of the heart or profit for the soul. Someday he'll understand that the greatest returns come from investing in people." A knock at the door interrupted his reading. Mrs. Thompson entered with a stack of letters. "Sir, these just arrived. They're responses to the Foundation's outreach program." Ahmed opened the first letter, written in a child's careful handwriting. It was from one of the scholarship recipients, expressing gratitude not just for the opportunity, but for being seen, for being valued. More letters followed, from parents, teachers, community leaders, all touched by the Foundation's mission. As he read each one, Ahmed thought about how Isabella had seen this potential in him long ago. The potential to be more than just a successful businessman, to be a force for positive change. She had planted seeds of compassion and awareness, trusting they would eventually bloom. The sound of laughter drew him to the window. In the garden, Sarah was teaching some of the scholarship recipients the proper way to make paper airplanes, while Karim explained the aerodynamics behind their flight. The scene brought tears to his eyes. This was real success, measured not in dollars but in moments of connection and growth. Mrs. Thompson smiled as she watched them too. "Miss Martinez would be proud," she said softly. "She always said this place needed more laughter." Ahmed nodded, remembering all the times he had hushed children's voices in his pursuit of professional decorum. Now he understood what Isabella had known all along. that true wealth resonated not in silent hallways, but in the joyful chaos of lives being transformed. That night, as he tucked his children into bed, Sarah handed him a drawing she had made. It showed their family standing in front of the foundation building, surrounded by butterflies. Mom always said butterflies remind us that beautiful changes are possible, she explained sleepily. Ahmed hung the drawing in his study right next to his business degrees on the walls. Somehow this crayon creation felt more significant than all his professional accolades combined. It represented not what he had achieved, but what he was becoming, with the help of two remarkable children and the enduring wisdom of their mother. The spring breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine through the mansion's open windows as Ahmed reviewed the final preparations for a very special event. The Isabella Martinez Foundation was hosting its first annual Family Day, bringing together all the children and families who had been touched by its programs over the past few months. "Everything's ready in the garden," Sarah announced, practically bouncing with excitement. She had taken a leading role in planning the event, showing the same attention to detail that her mother had been famous for. The mansion's grounds had been transformed into a festival of learning and joy. Activity stations dotted the landscape, reading corners, science experiments, art spaces, and music areas, each designed to showcase the talents and interests of the foundation's beneficiaries while encouraging new connections. "Dad," Karim called from the kitchen, where he was helping arrange refreshments. "Can we show everyone the new computer lab too?" The lab had been Karim's project, his idea to help bridge the digital divide for families who couldn't afford technology at home. Ahmed marveled at how both his children had embraced their roles as young philanthropists, each finding their own way to contribute to Isabella's legacy. As guests began to arrive, Ahmed watched Sarah greet each family personally, remembering names and stories as if they were old friends. She had inherited her mother's gift for making people feel valued and welcome. "Mr. Al-Rahman," one of the parents approached him, tears in her eyes. "I was Isabella's neighbor during her final months. She used to tell us that someday her daughter would find her way to a good man with a big heart. She was right." The words touched Ahmed deeply. He looked around at the gathering, children from all backgrounds playing together, parents sharing stories and support, his own kids moving confidently through the crowd, helping and encouraging others. This was the vision Isabella had held for him, even when he couldn't see it himself. During lunch served picnic-style on blankets spread across the lawn, Ahmed stood to make an announcement. "Today," he began, "we're not just celebrating the foundation's success, we're celebrating the power of family, not just the ones we're born into, but the ones we create through love and understanding." He gestured to Sarah and Karim, who joined him at the front. "My children taught me that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in moments of connection. Their mother," he looked at Sarah, "taught me that true legacy isn't about buildings or business empires, but about the lives we touch and the hearts we open." Sarah stepped forward, holding a framed photograph of Isabella. "Mom always said that everyone deserves a chance to bloom," she said, her voice clear and strong. "She would be so happy to see all of us here together." The afternoon continued with performances by the children, songs, dances, and presentations of their achievements. Ahmed sat between his children, his heart full as he watched the seeds of Isabella's vision flourish before his eyes. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Mrs. Thompson approached with an envelope she had found while preparing for the event. Inside was a letter from Isabella, dated just weeks before her passing. "Dear Ahmed, if you're reading this, then my Sarah has found her way home, and you've found your way back to your heart. I always knew the man behind the businessman had the capacity for great love and compassion. Sometimes it takes a child's hand to lead us to our best selves. Take care of our daughter, Ahmed. Let her and Karim teach you what I always knew, that the greatest achievement in life is not what we gain for ourselves, but what we give to others." With hope and faith, Isabella. Later that evening, as the last guest departed and the children helped clean up, another of Isabella's lessons about responsibility, Ahmed found himself in the garden. The space that had once been merely decorative was now alive with purpose, much like his own transformation. "Dad," Sarah called, joining him with Karim, "can we make this a monthly tradition? Not just yearly?" Ahmed pulled them both close. "Of course we can. Your mother always said that good things should be shared often." As they stood together in the twilight, a purple butterfly fluttered past them, landing briefly on the foundation's new sign before soaring away. Sarah squeezed his hand. "I was watching," she whispered. "She's happy." Ahmed looked at his children, the son who had taught him to slow down and enjoy life's simple pleasures, and the daughter who had helped him find his way back to his humanity. Together, they had created something beautiful from loss and betrayal, transforming a story of corporate intrigue into one of love, redemption, and the true meaning of family. Summer arrived in Beverly Hills with a wave of change that touched every aspect of the Al-Rahman family's life. The Isabella Martinez Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations, now operating in 3 different cities and touching thousands of lives. But for Ahmed, the most significant transformations were happening right at home. One warm morning, as he prepared for an important board meeting, he found Sarah sitting in his study, carefully examining a photograph of Isabella that now held a place of honor on his desk. "She would have been proud of you too, you know," Ahmed said, softly joining her. "You've helped so many children find their way, just like you found yours." Sarah smiled, her eyes wise beyond her 11 years. "Sometimes I think she knew all along how things would turn out. In her last letter to me, she wrote about dreams being like seeds. They just need the right garden to grow." The morning's board meeting was unlike any in the company's history. Instead of focusing solely on profit margins and market expansion, the agenda included presentations from Foundation Scholarship recipients. Ahmed watched with pride as Sarah and Karim introduced each speaker, their confidence and compassion shining through. "Our next initiative," Sarah announced to the board, showing poise that reminded everyone of Isabella, "is to create learning centers in every major city where the Al-Rahman Corporation has offices. Places where children can get help with homework, access to computers, and most importantly, people who believe in them." The board members, once skeptical of Ahmed's new direction, now nodded in approval. The foundation's success had proved that social responsibility and business success could go hand in hand. Even the shareholders had been won over by the positive publicity and the way the company's reputation had been enhanced. Later that afternoon, Ahmed found himself in a situation that would have been unimaginable a year ago, sitting on the floor of the Foundation's library, helping a group of children with their science projects, while Karim explained complex concepts in simple terms. "You know what's amazing?" one of the young students said, looking up from her experiment. "My mom used to clean offices like Mrs. Martinez did. Now she's taking classes at community college because of the Foundation's parent education program." Ahmed felt his heart swell. Isabella's influence continued to ripple outward, touching lives in ways he hadn't anticipated. The Foundation wasn't just helping children, it was transforming entire families, breaking cycles of limited opportunity. That evening, during their family dinner, now a sacred ritual that no business meeting could interrupt, Karim made an unexpected announcement. "I've been thinking," he said seriously, "when I grow up I want to run the Foundation instead of the company." Ahmed looked at his son, remembering how just a year ago, Karim's only ambition had been to make money and buy expensive toys. "The Foundation would be lucky to have you," he replied. "But remember what Sarah's mom taught us. Success isn't about what position you hold, it's about how many lives you touch." Sarah nodded sagely. "Mom always said that true leadership is about serving others, not being served." As they finished dinner, Mrs. Thompson brought in a package that had arrived earlier. Inside was a collection of thank you letters from families whose lives had been changed by the Foundation. One letter in particular caught Ahmed's attention. It was from a former employee who had worked alongside Isabella. "I remember how she used to talk about you, Mr. Al-Rahman," the letter read. "She would say that underneath all the business success was a man with a heart of gold who just needed to remember how to use it." She was right. What you've created with this foundation isn't just changing lives, it's fulfilling the vision she always had for what your company could become. That night, as Ahmed tucked his children into bed, a ritual he now cherished, Sarah showed him a project she'd been working on, a scrapbook documenting the Foundation's journey, filled with photos, newspaper clippings, and personal stories. "Look," she pointed to a recent photo of their family at a Foundation event. "Mum would love how many people are smiling now. She always said a happy heart makes a happy home." Ahmed hugged her close, marveling at how this child had helped him redefine his entire concept of success. "Your mother's wisdom lives on through you, Sarah. Through both of you," he added, including Karim in the embrace. As he left their rooms, he paused to look at a new family portrait hanging in the hallway. Himself with both children, surrounded by the Foundation's scholarship recipients. The photograph captured something essential about their transformed lives: the joy of purpose, the strength of family, and the enduring power of Isabella's vision. In his study, reviewing the day's events, Ahmed found himself reading Isabella's journal one more time. Her words, now familiar but always inspiring, seemed to speak directly to this moment. True wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we share. True power isn't in controlling others, but in empowering them. And true love isn't in what we receive, but in what we give freely to others. The first anniversary of the Isabella Martinez Foundation approached, bringing with it a sense of accomplishment and reflection. Ahmed stood in his office, now adorned with children's artwork alongside business awards, preparing for the celebration that would mark this milestone. "Dad!" Sarah burst into the room, her excitement palpable. "You won't believe what we found in the old storage room." She held out a dusty video camera, one that Isabella had apparently used during her time at the mansion. Ahmed's hands trembled as he connected it to his computer. The screen came to life with Isabella's image, recording what appeared to be a personal diary. "I'm recording this," Isabella's voice filled the room, "because someday someone needs to know the truth, not just about the numbers and the business, but about the heart of this place. About Ahmed Al-Rahman, who worked so hard to build an empire but doesn't see the kingdom of kindness he could create." Sarah and Karim, who had joined them, watched transfixed as their mother's wisdom unfolded through various clips. She had recorded moments of everyday life in the mansion. Ahmed teaching Karim chess, quiet moments in the garden, even conversations about business that now seemed prophetic. "The real treasure," Isabella's voice continued, "isn't in the bank accounts or the business deals. It's in the potential for good that exists here. Someday I hope my Sarah finds her way to this place, not just to expose the wrongs, but to help make everything right." The videos became a centerpiece of the Foundation's anniversary celebration, playing on screens throughout the event. They showed not just Isabella's intelligence in documenting the fraud, but her deep understanding of human nature and her belief in the power of transformation. During the celebration, Ahmed addressed the gathered crowd, Foundation beneficiaries, business partners, and community members. "A year ago," he began, "we thought we were creating a foundation to help others. What we didn't realize was that we were also building a bridge between who we were and who we could become." Sarah and Karim stood beside him, each holding one of his hands. "Isabella Martinez saw potential in everyone she met," Ahmed continued. "She taught us that true success isn't measured in dollars, but in smiles, in opportunities created, in lives transformed." The Foundation's impact was evident in the success stories shared that day. Students who had found their passion, parents who had returned to school, families who had broken free from cycles of limitation. Each story was a testament to Isabella's vision and the power of believing in people's potential. Later that evening, as the family sat in their garden, now a vibrant space full of life and laughter, Sarah shared something she had kept secret. "Mum left me one last letter," she said, pulling out a worn envelope. "She said to open it when we were all truly happy." Together they read Isabella's final message. "My dearest ones, if you're reading this, then my greatest dreams have come true. Sarah has found her home, Ahmed has found his heart, and Karim has found the joy of giving. Remember that family isn't about blood or background. It's about love, trust, and the courage to believe in each other. Take care of each other and never stop growing the garden of goodness we've planted together." The letter brought tears to their eyes, but they were tears of joy and gratitude. Their family had been forged through challenges and changes, strengthened by love and understanding, and guided by the wisdom of a remarkable woman who had seen the best in everyone. "You know what Mum would say right now?" Sarah asked, looking at the Foundation building visible from their garden. "What's that, sweetheart?" Ahmed replied, holding both his children close. "She'd say that every ending is just a new beginning in disguise," Sarah smiled, "and that the best kind of wealth is the kind that grows when you share it." As the sun set on their celebration, casting a golden glow over their transformed world, Ahmed realized that Isabella had given them all an invaluable gift, not just the foundation that bore her name, but the understanding that true success lies in the lives we touch and the love we share. The butterfly garden they had planted in Isabella's memory was in full bloom, attracting beautiful purple butterflies that seemed to dance in the evening light. It was a perfect symbol of their journey, a reminder that the most beautiful transformations often come from unexpected beginnings, and that love, like butterflies, can transform the world one gentle touch at a time. 18 months had passed since Sarah first pulled Karim from the path of that delivery truck, and the Al Rahman mansion had transformed beyond recognition. What was once a symbol of corporate success had become a beacon of hope and community. The gardens, once maintained for show, now hosted weekly gatherings for foundation families, filling the air with laughter and conversation. On this particular morning, Ahmed sat in his study, reviewing a special document, the final paperwork for a new initiative that would expand the Isabella Martinez Foundation internationally. But his attention kept drifting to a different paper on his desk, Sarah's school essay about family. Real family, she had written, isn't just about sharing a last name or living in the same house. It's about sharing dreams, supporting each other, and believing in the good that exists in everyone. My mum knew this, and she taught me that home isn't a place, it's where your heart finds its purpose. The essay had won first place in a national competition, bringing attention not just to Sarah's writing talent, but to the foundation's mission. Requests had started pouring in from around the world, asking for guidance in establishing similar programs. Dad? Karim appeared in the doorway, holding his tablet. Can you help me with something? I'm designing a new program for the Foundation's computer lab. Ahmed smiled, remembering how his son had once spent hours playing video games. Now at 12, Karim was using his love of technology to develop educational software for underprivileged children. As they worked together on the program, Sarah joined them, carrying Isabella's purple diary. I found something interesting, she said, opening to a marked page. Mom wrote this exactly 2 years ago today. The entry read, Today I watched Ahmed and Karim in the garden. There was a moment when Ahmed stopped checking his phone, really looked at his son and smiled. In that smile I saw the man he could become, not just a successful businessman, but a person who understands that the greatest investments are made in human hearts. Someday I hope he realizes that true wealth multiplies when shared, and that the best legacies are built on love. A knock at the door interrupted their reading. Mrs. Thompson entered with excitement in her eyes. Sir, you need to see this. She turned on the office television to a major news network, where a story about the Isabella Martinez Foundation was running. The reporter stood in front of one of their new international centers, speaking about the revolutionary approach to corporate social responsibility that had begun with one woman's vision and one family's transformation. The camera panned to show children from different backgrounds learning together, parents attending adult education classes, and communities being uplifted. Your mother, Ahmed said softly to Sarah. She saw all of this possibility even when I was blind to it. She knew that one act of kindness could create ripples that would touch countless lives. Later that afternoon, during a foundation board meeting, Sarah and Karim presented their latest initiative, a mentorship program pairing successful professionals with promising students. The board members, many of whom had initially questioned Ahmed's new direction, now leaned forward eagerly, taking notes and offering support. Ms. Martinez's daughter has her mother's insight, one board member commented afterward. She sees possibilities where others see problems. That evening, as the family walked through the butterfly garden, now a signature feature of every foundation center, Sarah stopped by a particular purple butterfly bush. Mom always said that butterflies remind us that change is beautiful, she said, watching as several butterflies danced around them. She was right, Ahmed replied, putting an arm around each of his children. About that and so many other things. They stood together, watching the sun set over their transformed world. The mansion's lights glowed warmly behind them, while in the distance, the foundation's building stood as a beacon of hope for the community. The security gates that had once kept people out now welcomed visitors with a sign reading, Welcome to the Garden of New Beginnings. Inside, photographs lined the halls, not just of their family, but of all the lives touched by Isabella's vision. Each image told a story of transformation, of barriers broken, of dreams achieved. the center of it all, Isabella's portrait smiled down with knowing wisdom, as if she had seen this future all along. As they prepared for dinner, now always served family style, with conversation and sharing as important as the food, Ahmed looked at his children with profound gratitude. Sarah, so like her mother in her wisdom and compassion, had helped him rediscover his humanity. Karim, once focused only on material things, had learned the joy of using his privileges to help others. "You know what?" Karim said, helping to set the table, another change from their formal past. "I think we should make the Foundation's next project about helping kids start their own businesses. Small ones, but real ones." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. Mom would love that idea. She always said that everyone deserves a chance to grow their dreams. Ahmed watched his children discuss their plans, their eyes bright with purpose and possibility. Isabella's influence lived on through them, her wisdom continuing to shape not just their family, but countless others. The simple housekeeper who had seen the truth behind the wealth had created a legacy far greater than any business empire. The grand ballroom of the Al Rahman mansion buzzed with excitement as hundreds of guests gathered for a momentous occasion, the official launch of the Isabella Martinez Global Initiative. The space that had once hosted lavish business galas now welcomed people from all walks of life, united by a shared vision of hope and transformation. Sarah, now 12, stood at the podium with poise that reminded everyone of her mother. 2 years ago, she began, a simple act of kindness changed everything. My mom always said that kindness is like a seed. Plant it in good soil, give it love and attention, and it will grow into something beautiful. The audience listened intently as she shared stories of lives transformed through the Foundation's work. Behind her, a massive screen displayed photographs. Isabella working in the mansion, Sarah's first day with the Al Rahmans, the Foundation's growth, and countless moments of joy and triumph from their extended family of beneficiaries. Karim joined his sister at the podium, demonstrating the easy partnership they had developed. Today, he announced, we're not just launching new programs. We're carrying forward a vision that started with one person who believed in the power of seeing the good in everyone. Ahmed watched his children with pride, remembering how far they had all come. The businessman who had once measured success in profit margins now understood that the truest form of wealth was the ability to enrich others' lives. The celebration continued with presentations from Foundation graduates, young people who had completed their education and were now giving back to their communities. Each story echoed Isabella's belief that everyone deserves a chance to bloom. As evening approached, Ahmed took the stage for the final announcement. "Today," he said, his voice rich with emotion, "we're introducing the Isabella Martinez Scholarship for Dreamers. This program will provide not just education, but comprehensive support to help people achieve their full potential." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Isabella once wrote in her journal that dreams don't have price tags, they have heart tags. She believed that with the right support and belief, anyone could transform their life and the lives of others. The announcement was met with thunderous applause, but the most touching moment came when Sarah and Karim unveiled their surprise, a memorial garden that would be replicated at every Foundation center worldwide. At its heart stood a bronze statue of Isabella, depicted not as a housekeeper, but as a teacher, surrounded by children and butterflies. "Mom always said that butterflies remind us of life's most beautiful truth," Sarah explained to the gathered crowd, "that no matter where we start, we all have the potential to transform into something magnificent." Later that night, after the guests had departed, the family stood together in the garden. The statue of Isabella seemed to glow in the moonlight, her gentle smile watching over the world she had helped create. "I found one last entry in Mom's diary," Sarah said softly, pulling out the familiar purple book. It was hidden in a secret pocket. I think she meant for us to find it today. Together, they read Isabella's final words. "To those who find this message, remember that love is the greatest force for change in the world. It transforms mansions into homes, strangers into family, and dreams into reality. To my Sarah, you are my greatest dream come true. To Ahmed, thank you for becoming the man I always knew you could be. To Karim, thank you for opening your heart to a new kind of family. And to all who carry this vision forward, remember that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change the world." Ahmed hugged his children business empire he had built now stood for something far greater than profit. It was a force for positive change, touching lives across the globe. As if in response to their moment of reflection, a group of purple butterflies danced around them, their wings catching the moonlight. Sarah smiled through happy tears. "Mom's here," she whispered. "She's always here in every life we touch, in every dream we help come true." Looking up at the stars, Ahmed silently thanked Isabella for the precious gifts she had given them all. The gift of family, the gift of purpose, and most importantly, the gift of seeing the extraordinary potential that exists in every human heart. The mansion's lights glowed warmly behind them, no longer a symbol of isolated wealth, but a beacon of hope and possibility. In the distance, the foundation's buildings stood tall, their windows illuminated with the light of dreams being born and nurtured. "You know what?" Karim said, breaking the peaceful silence. "I think this is just the beginning." Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with purpose. "Mom always said that every ending is just a new chapter waiting to be written." And so their story continued, not ending but evolving, touching more lives and creating more ripples of positive change. Isabella's legacy lived on, not just in the foundation that bore her name, but in every act of kindness, every transformed life, and every moment of joy shared between people who had once been strangers but were now bound together by love, purpose, and the endless possibility of dreams. Ahmed looked at his children, his son who had learned to see beyond material wealth, and his daughter who carried her mother's wisdom and compassion. Together, they had created something beautiful from loss and betrayal, transforming a story of corporate intrigue into one of love, redemption, and the true meaning of family. The butterfly garden bloomed around them, a living testament to Isabella's belief that beauty can emerge from the most unexpected places. And in that moment, surrounded by the physical manifestation of their shared dreams, they knew that their journey would continue, touching more lives and creating more stories of transformation, just as Isabella had always